the first one that we had to really tackle or figure out was how are we going to finance all this stuff? And when you're talking about as a service models, it's one thing to go in and say, hey, Mr. Customer, here's $1 million in equipment, and then you go buy it up front, and then we're gonna manage it after you. And that's really the traditional managed services model, and you saw them stuff. And that's good, but we wanted it to be even stickier. We wanted the whole thing to be delivered as a service, which means we had to figure out how do we take this financial services process and really embed it into how we're doing business as a company, which is really a different kind of a workflow. And so the first partner that I would say is very critical is a finance partner that has some sort of technology financing program that can fund essentially your as a service business. And I can tell you from experience, if you design this correctly, it gives you the ability to scale with growing your upfront revenue and still getting paid that one-time revenue, but then being able to grow the recurring revenue as well. And obviously that's the goal of every owner that's on the call today is how do I grow my recurring revenue and increase the value of my company. And so I can't underscore enough how important financing or technology financing is. And a company like Wells Fargo, can provide those types of services. And then the second partner is, obviously is sitting here, is you've got to have a manufacturer, and not just any manufacturer, I would say, but you have to have a manufacturer that wants to be supporting you as you build an as a service model. And obviously we're hosting here with Joey and Checkpoint. And so Joey, I want you to unpack a little bit some of the Checkpoint programs that are really designed to support service providers once that equipment is installed. Yeah, anybody can sell the firewall, or the security services and turn it on. But what are the tools that you guys have after that initial sale that you can talk about?
Yeah, 100% spot on there. And just for those that may not have caught part one or haven't maybe heard of Checkpoint, we started in 1993 in Tel Aviv, Israel. Today, we've got over 100,000 customers all across the globe. Really one of the larger pure play security manufacturers in the world. And Phil's exactly right. I mean, any company can sell products or sell services, but at the end of the day, for the service provider and for really that partner ecosystem to make sense, it's got to be easy to deploy, easy to manage, and easy to support. If you're going to boil it down into three pillars, because it's an ongoing continuation of a partnership, right? So when you think about that, really some of the areas to get started on continuously, the Checkpoint does a great job of are things like upgrades, onboarding, integrations with third-party tools, and really that's where I've seen, and a lot of my colleagues are seeing, the rubber meets the road with the service providers. So one of the main areas Checkpoint does a great job of that is our Infinity portal. And this is going to be the portal that our service providers are logging into to manage our various technologies. It's your single pane of glass, cloud-based, that you've got the ability to have multi-tenant. So as a service provider with multiple customers, you can be, looking at deploying a mobile threat events for client A, and then 2 clicks later, you're going to be looking at a separate client's email security dashboard. So that's a really something we're seeing a lot of success with, and the market needs, right? And we talked earlier about things that, service providers need to scale and what makes sense coming from the manufacturer side. We're getting a ton of positive feedback with that. Secondly, we talk a little bit about integrations and APIs. Checkpoint today has over 300 technology integrations because not every service provider is the same. I mean, Phil can tell you this, he's run one. You're going to have service providers that have specialty in certain areas. Some have a telco background or a VoIP background or a managed print background, and they're trying to get into the security space. And really why we're here today is they want to offer services around it, and they need resources from multiple channels to help do that. Another big area, the onboarding and support is big because that's going to be really key to scale. Checkpoint does a fantastic job with if we want to place the autonomy to do that on the partner, we've got self-set up wizards and resources to do that, our partners are using on a daily basis. We've got partner community groups for any type of need. If all of that wants to be done at the service provider level, we've got 1-800 numbers that are staffed by around the clock, experienced incident response resources that are just one phone call away. So that's another key component to it as well. I know I'm rambling here, Phil.
No, this is good stuff, man. Keep going. So I wanted to prompt you on one other thing that I think is important. When you're thinking about equipment, because when you're selling obviously networking, there's clearly hardware and things like that involved. When in the old kind of VAR business model, okay, you would go into the customer and the customer would tell you how much money they had basically, and then you would essentially figure out what equipment you could sell them. So if you were selling like the latest networking, you'd be like, oh, let me tell you about all the fantastic features and the throughput on the firewall. And then it would just basically their budget would dictate, hey, here's the best model we have. No, I can't afford that. Okay, well, this model will work as well.
Yeah.
And what I want to point out, it ends up being scenarios where you have school districts buying, the most expensive device. You're like, that was a complete waste of money. That's what happens a lot in those scenarios. In an as a service model, you kind of flip it to the service provider is now obviously the managed service provider, the networking company providing that to their customer. And it actually changes the dynamic of the purchase, because now I'm delivering a service level agreement. I'm not delivering a freaking, the most expensive firewall they can afford. I'm now delivering a service, if you will. And what we've done, and what I appreciate that we did with you guys, is we spent several months, like 6 or 8 months or something, and we took the Checkpoint product set and we designed bundles with it. And we said, this bundle is the right bundle when you're going to deliver an SLA to a school district. This bundle is the right bundle in delivering this service into a office type environment. And so can you talk a little bit about that, the SLAs and the bundles and things like that?
Yeah, it's key, because we talked earlier about not every service provider being different. And what they need to really get a service model like this off the ground is something white glove and click. And just very few clicks in order to get something stood up. So you're needing those bundles that are tailored to large commercial customers or school districts or healthcare or things like state and local and school districts that fit the need, or you're having to spend time 2 to 3 months workshopping what those SKUs are, how are the deliverables, with a vendor resource beforehand, right? What Phil and the teams here have got today are preset bundles that we have already been configured that make sense for those environments. It's fantastic, and it's really critical to getting something like this off the ground.
Yeah, just a real quick comment on that. I really think this is the future of how IT services are going to scale, productizing everything that we do. There tends to be these customized transactions. The pursuit costs are high. How do you put all these things together? And in the end, you're starting to build these repeatable bundles that you start to see that trend. So the Secure Edge platform really enables us to be able to build some of those elements. And that's how we're going to scale in the future. I think about the past, how everything was customized. We're doing much of the same things over and over again, but the pressure for us to productize, I think, is going to be how we're going to be successful in the future. And that initiative and using something that ties finance and all the different elements together, I want this, it's X dollars, and the transaction is complete.